Welcome back to Policy Matters. I'm your host, Dustin Goverlow, and with us today we have a local resident, Wayne Papke. Wayne has been involved in local government issues for many years, and what we wanted to do was bring somebody like Wayne, who is just a regular citizen that has dealt with local government issues, and get his thoughts and advice to anybody who has concerns with what their local government is doing. And Wayne, what is your first reaction when you hear about these bond issues that have been going on in the last 6 or 9 months? They've been having a real hard time, and that has defied the historical tradition that school bond issues really pretty much get a free pass anytime the local school board puts them on the ballot. What do you think that the difficulty that the various school boards have been having with these bond issues means to the general public and to the process?
I think it's always the same story, and that is tax dollars. I think in North Dakota, I think for the healthy environment we're in financially, we are still a very heavily taxed state. And despite some of the relief we've received from the state, et cetera, I think people are just fearing that how much that's going to cost them personally. They think they're paying their taxes as they are, and they don't think there should be any add-ons for a school sometimes. And it isn't that they won't want the school, it is the tax part of it. Now, today, you can make the argument that they should be doing bond issues. Number one, we're in growth. Number two, we need a replacement cycle on buildings, et cetera. The interest rates are extremely low and attractive, which makes the bond issue less costly. So there's a lot of good reasons for a lot of these issues today, as long as they're within their doing their due diligence on the school board's part.
Right now, the thing that will be in the news for the next several weeks is the Regent Mott school bond issue, where the local school board is putting to the voters basically a $15 million bond issue to build a brand new school in Mott. And there are some locals that have some difficulty with that, in that they're basing their budget not on a bid, not on an actual proposal, but on a draft feasibility study. Do you think that a lot of these towns that are on the very periphery of the oil development but can still call themselves western counties and western communities, do you think that we are running the risk that a lot of these towns are going to take advantage of the difficulties that communities that have actually been impacted directly with the oil have good excuses for?
I think it's also maybe a matter of competition and competitiveness and sometimes egos. But, they have to compete in some ways. If they're right on the fringes, they have to be able to attract products and services just like anybody else does. I think it's really more so of a jealousy, because they are not getting the state oil impact funding that the other counties are. So it actually becomes a much more sensitive decision on the fringes. From Mandan, we're kind of in the same boat. We're not getting much we don't get coal severance, we don't get oil impact to the most part. I think we get a very small amount, but nothing like what a McKenzie or Williams County would get, and deservedly so, because that's where the oil is produced. But we on the fringes here, we're seeing the growth without seeing the growth in immediate revenue. So it's a very tough one. Mott's a really interesting scenario, because you've got snowbirds, you've got hunting residents that basically live there for different reasons. Your baby boom population is so low these days as a percent of the town that you're dealing with maybe the same size town, but with less taxpayers that are actually benefiting by these schools. So you've got that side saying, I don't want to pay for a school because I don't have kids. And then you've got the traditional people and the younger people, but there's just less and less of them in those small towns, and that's the tough part. So you've got less of a voice in the young baby age people. So
I've talked to some of the folks that are trying to push back on the bond issue out there, and what they're fighting is the fact they're not saying that they don't want a school. They're saying that they don't think that they need a $15 million school. They are suggesting that perhaps additions to the current school to replace old pieces of the school, one chunk at a time, would be a better approach rather than trying to either renovate the entire old school as is, which pretty much everybody agrees would be a waste of money. Do you think that the locals who deal with this sort of demonization, and you've dealt with this idea that if you're not for what they are proposing, then you're against it, even if you're really for something that's a better idea, what do you think the local residents, local landowners, local taxpayers who would actually be paying for this project, how do you think they should approach this problem that they're having right now?
I just think that they're going to have to spend some money, because it will cost them some money to have an engineering estimate on some of those projects, and probably do some forecasting and probability studies of how much this addition will be 5 years from now, how much this addition will be now, et cetera. And they're just best guesstimates. I mean, what it'll end up doing is it'll end up costing them $20,000, $30,000 to do a study or an engineering estimate to give them those numbers. My opinion is I don't think, I'll say it this way, because we're building right now an $11 million elementary school at Mandan, and that came in at a pretty good bid compared to the Bismarck ones. The $15 million does not sound to me to be too far-fetched in today's day and age, and I think that's the other problem. If you haven't built a school anywhere in your community for 25 or 30 years, you have no experience personally in what it actually does cost, just from a local publicity standpoint. If you look at the schools that are being built in Bismarck here, again, even the one in Mandan, just an elementary school is $11 million. So it's not cheap.
No, it's not cheap. I think that what a lot of folks, and we've seen it here in Bismarck-Mandan, as far as it gets into the process of how they came to that design and that price tag, and whether that is including necessities that really help the education process, or whether it is to create what we kind of term as Taj Mahal schools, which are very glamorous, they look nice, they're monuments more than they are education facilities. Yeah. And I think that a lot of folks down there are worried that is the direction it is, that it's designed to be a monument for the next 100 years, because the current school has been used for 100 years. So now the people in charge want to leave their mark and use other people's money to do it, whether or not it makes good sense and actually is required for the education process.
Yeah, I think you're definitely going to get some idealists in that area that are looking at all of what the NEA is doing and what NDEA suggests and what DPI suggests, and they're going to come up with this ideal school. That's why I think they need a reality check, and I think you got to deal with engineers that are a little more common sense, and then we'll see, this is at least your minimum standards, as well as giving them their maximum standards. Because in Mandan, we've done a good job. I think the schools are reasonably modest. They're on a scale of 1 to 10, I think they're a 5 when it comes to as far as extravagant. And I think that's what they got to do. And this, again, this region, even though we're close proximity, whatever, this city and its constituents have not been through this process for a long time. And so they need to really kind of look outside the box and look at what Mandan's done, consult with Mandan. There are engineers that specialize in schools, and maybe even consult some of the ones that built some of ours in a pretty modest fashion. So I just think that it's a learning experience is really what they're going through down there, more than it is a construction problem or a school bond issue right now. It's just a very new thing altogether.
Yeah, and we got to take a quick commercial break. When we come back, I'd like to talk about what's going on here in Bismarck-Mandan and the idea that a capital city in the United States can have an uncontested race for an open seat for mayor in what everybody, whether you're Republican, Democrat, or neither, we all know this is a government town. The notion that a mayor's seat can go uncontested, and what that really means to the process and for voters. We will be right back with Wayne Papke.
Yeah, we've got to get into the edge.
Welcome back to Policy Matters, and we are speaking with Wayne Papke, who is a local citizen who has been involved in the political process with local government for many years, mostly on the Mandan side of the river. Wayne, what do you think of the situation here in Bismarck from an outsider's perspective, coming from Mandan, that we have an open seat for mayor and only one candidate? What's your initial reaction to that?
It's just very common across the board in local government these days. It's people are really busy. Okay, we're in a real booming economy, and people are busy, and it's harder and harder. It's always been hard to get enough candidates of interest. You have to almost become passionate for this stuff to want to do it. It truly is a public servant. Yes, you get paid for it, but not that much for the time that you put into it and the phone calls you get. So it takes some dedication, and it's hard to do. Now, the mayor job is virtually a full-time job. So it's that one really takes some commitment. Job conflicts. There's a lot of opportunities for work and earning good wages out there today. You're giving that up by doing this in a lot of ways. So it's unfortunate. It's function of two things. One is people's interest in the deal. Actually, three things. Okay, second is their knowledge of the whole program. I think people have to do one thing amidst their free time, and that is to start educating themselves on the local government process and laws. I think you'll be a much better citizen when it comes to what's going on out there, and you'll know when things aren't exactly what they seem to be. And then lastly, again, is just this conflict with the work stuff and everything like that. So it takes a very special person that wants to step up to the plate. It's tough. I think I'm hoping, again, I'd really tie it to the fact that our lifestyles have become so busy around here because things are going so good.
Do you think that in order to get good people who are too busy running their businesses and making money, that from the conservative standpoint, we need to actually consider paying people as full-time positions and as full-time CEOs that just happen to be called mayor? What would you think of paying the mayor of Bismarck $70,000 if it meant getting people who otherwise would just stick to their own business and do what they're doing to take care of their families?
I don't think 70,000 is going to attract a whole lot more either. It's a tough environment. Small business owners are making hundreds of thousands of dollars, and then to sacrifice their time out of their jobs is costing them much more than that. So it's a tough one. Yeah, I do believe we have to start competing a little bit better from the standpoint of government. We don't necessarily need to compete directly from the standpoint of versus the commercial sector. I don't know where that number is, where it should be, but it's worth more than $70,000 a year to become mayor, I think, because of basically because of what you're giving up.
Right, and I only throw that out because I think it would, even amongst those who think that it should be a full-time position, it would pretty much be difficult to pay $100 or more because the governor doesn't even make that yet.
Mm-hmm.
So when you have the governor in the city making less than that, it would be kind of tough to have the mayor making more than the governor.
It is. And again, it goes back to you have to have that special person with the passion. Then money is irrelevant.
Right. And what do you think about, next to only having one candidate for an open seat for mayor, there's 8 candidates for city commission for 2 spots. So just the way that it breaks down, everybody gets to vote for their 2 favorite. We could see a situation where we have 2 city commissioners on the city commission with less than 30% of the vote, just the way the numbers break down. Do you think that is a disservice to the citizens? Do you think that we should maybe have some sort of a runoff process? Obviously, we can't do it after the fact. The system is what the system is now. But if so many apply and get the signatures to run for a limited number of seats, should there be a process to whittle that down better so that we have a better chance of getting the truly best qualified?
I don't know that you wouldn't scare people off again if you did that. However, I think we're judged from election to election. So if you it becomes a popularity contest, and yeah, you can buy votes by spending a lot of advertising dollars and things like that, and yard signs and whatever. But it is still boils down to the niche popularity contest that you're in, and those that are the most popular tend to win. Now, does that make them the most qualified? No, it doesn't, and that's the problem. Now, to remedy that, the next election, you have the opportunity to vote them out again. And that's what, unfortunately, again, there's a lot of apathy, and so there's not a lot of research. What you really need to do as voters, you really need to call these guys and interview them. I don't care if you all did it. If the whole Bismarck did it, they should be calling these people and interviewing them. If you're going to have somebody running your city and, somebody that you're going to eventually call and complain to about snow removal or street cleaning or things like that, you want to have a relationship, so you might as well get started now before you vote for them rather than after. Go to the public forums that they have where they interview them and talk about policy. Because you really do need to get to know these people.
And obviously it wouldn't be treading new ground to have a runoff election. That's what the county commissioners do. So, I mean, right now, county commissioners must be, the guys running for that and the gals, must be thinking, wow, that would be nice if I only had to get 30% of the vote rather than 50% of the vote. So I think that what it shows is that there's a lot of people that want to get involved, a lot more. It is, I think, a good sign that 8 people want to get involved in the city commission. I think that the problem comes in is that nobody wants to be the leader. Nobody wants to be in that top seat because it takes so much more time than just going to the city commission meetings and a few committee hearing meetings. What do you think that the solution to getting people to want to be more involved? And that goes for everybody, whether they're running for office or not. People have, as you've been saying, so much to do in their lives, taking care of their families, starting their businesses, running their businesses. But those are the people that we want running our government, is people that are successful, or at least trying to be successful in something else. How do we get more of those people involved?
I really think you got to take a look at your own neighborhood as a citizen, and you really see a dream for your developed or your next to your development, things like that. Here's a way you can actually have an influence, a major influence on it. Rather than just going in and screaming at a city commission meeting, you could actually be a part of the policy making. And people, I think, understand that. I don't know what the solution is to the other situation. I do agree that should be maybe a runoff, because 30% of the voters is not a representative, majority, obviously. So as a result, I don't know that you want city commissioners being elected with only 30% of the approval rating out there, so to speak. So that could be a real conflict, and maybe the answer is the runoff things. But anyway, to get involved is something that, again, you got to look within yourself to say, do I get irritated with the city? Do I wish they would do something different? If so, just study it. I've been a student of local government for all my life. I just got the interest in it and passion. So I get in and I'll end up knowing the city budget, when they go through the hearing process, just as well as the commissioners will. I want to know, and I'm a businessman, so I can understand budgets. It just takes a little time to study them. Actually, I'm part of that budget, so as a result, I want to know it. So it's kind of, running the city is part of everyone's duty and responsibility, because we all really run it as citizens and taxpayers and voters.
Well, it will be certainly interesting to see what happens locally and on these bond measures around the state. Last night, or on Tuesday, I should say, the Minot bond measure, the second go-around, passed finally. It took them 2 tries to get it. And I think that between that and what the state legislature is doing, we might just be seeing a paradigm shift in how the voters are treating these things, but it's probably too soon to tell.
Yeah. The property tax reduction, not reduction. I just want to make a quick about 2 seconds here. I'm going to say I want everybody to know out there, your property taxes were not reduced. They were subsidized by oil money. So the legislature legislature chose to take oil tax revenue and pay down your property tax. Property tax formula has not changed a bit. So as a result, if the oil tax revenue goes away, your property tax bill goes up even higher than it was at its highest level before. So they haven't fixed the problem is what it boils down to. But because of the fact that they subsidized it, people are now going to be more accepting of some backbilled money to pay for schools and things like that. It's going to make the burden less cumbersome because of what the legislature did in subsidizing your property tax. So that is going to make these bond issues easier and easier to do. It also makes abuses more open because now, for example, City of Mandan went up in their budget 14% last year. Well, they did that very quietly yet because nobody's going to complain because their total property tax bill went down. Well, they backfilled some of what you should have had from that the state subsidized. So little do you know, your property tax bills could have been a lot less had they done their basic due obligation.
Yeah, and as much as they refuse to admit it, Republican supermajority in the state is going to eventually realize that the ability to continue that subsidy program at the level that they've been doing it is just not sustainable long term. It might be fine for 5, 7, even 10 more years, but somewhere down the road, that money is going to either have to go somewhere else or it's going to dry up from the current revenue source, and in the end, local taxpayers are going to get stuck with the bill once again.
And I don't like paying taxes with taxes. That's what we're doing. That's wrong. That should be returned to the people. Excess tax revenue is supposed to be returned to the people, not spent on another tax.
Right, and the state's policy on this is based on politics rather than what is good public policy. Mm-hmm. Thank you for joining us, Wayne. With us today has been Wayne Papke, a local citizen that's been involved. Join us next week when we will talk about the other issues